what that's going to do is in each of the slice views, of course I turn it on, you can't see it, so you got to zoom back out. What it did is it turned on these blue lines. So if I turn it off, they're gone. If I turn it on, these blue lines come in. And so what I can do now is I can grab these blue lines and bring them over. And you can see what happens when I move that blue line. It crops the data. So I can grab each of these, bring it in. Then you want to look at the different views. Basically, you need to go to 2 of the 3 views to do this. And if you want to make this tightly cropped, you can zoom in and then bring it in as close as you can. Probably want to get rid of these little tubes that are around the specimen. And you want to check it in all 3 views. And then once you think you're done, you actually want to scroll through. So I'm going to scroll through and I can see that I brought this in a little too much here. So I'm going to bring this edge back out. That looks okay there. I'm going to go to this view, the same thing. I want to go through a couple of these views to make sure that you're not getting it too close or cutting off any of the specimen. So that looks pretty good there. And so that's the sub-region within this volume that I want to export. So to do that, you go to the Export tab. So Export tab, and there's the little region that I can export. And so that's within the crop region. And it looks like we got a little bit too much here. So let's go back. Let's see where that's coming from. Way up here. Yeah, so we bring this in here. Go back and check the view. Oh, yeah, there's still some there. No, it looked like too much. Oh, it was right before. Okay, so it looks okay. Okay, so let's go back to export. Export here. Looks okay there. And so there's 3 types of export we can do. So we can do volume exporting, so that'll be the 3-dimensional volumetric data. We can do surface-based exporting. So this would just be the triangle surface, and then soon we'll have some landmark points, then we can export the landmark points there. So to do this one, you just click on Export Volume and give it a name. And it exports just that little volume. Export completed. Do you want to load the volume? Yes. Let's load it. And now I've got that little subregion here. I can do the change the brightness and contrast. I can extract the surface, do all the same capabilities. So on the Export tab, so one point of clarification, whether or not I export the crop region depends on whether or not this button is clicked. So if I have the cropping turned on, then it only exports the cropped region. If I have it turned off, then it exports the entire region. I'm actually going to export 2 of these shells here, so that later on I can actually use them for a couple other activities. So let's pick another one here. Let's go over and get let's get this one. This looks interesting. So I had to expand the cropping region and then bring it back in on this new specimen. Scroll through, make sure it's not missing any pieces. Looks okay there. Okay, let's export that one as well. Looks okay there. Let's call this one B. So now we've got these two subregions exported individually down here. This one's interesting looking. I think this will work for what I want to do later. Later on, what I'm going to do, I'm going to try and take these two, put landmark points on them, and do some three-dimensional warping between them. See if we can get that to work. So that's how you pull out individual specimens. So I believe that answers our first question that was posed to us. You should be able to do this, a little bit tedious, but you should be able to go through each of your specimen and pull them out individually into little subregions. And then this is still at the resolution of the micro CT. So with specimen like this, I wouldn't recommend downsampling the original micro CT because the specimen are so small relative to that original scan that if you downsample the full scan, by the time you pull out your individual specimen, you're going to lose surface detail and that kind of thing. So by keeping it at the full resolution, when you pull out the subregion, like in this view here, you still are able to maintain all the detail of the individual specimen, which you can see here as we sort of scroll through it. It's quite a bit in these guys. This one in particular. I would love to know like what all of this stuff is. I have no idea what these things are. That's one of the things that's really cool about everybody that uses Checkpoint. You guys all work on different things, and I've never seen a shell until yesterday like this. Some people work on dolphins, some people work on spiders, you know, monkeys, all kinds of things. It's really fun to work with you all, just to see the neat things that people are using this for. So one of our next questions, let's move on to the next question. Unless particular person that provided this data has any more questions in relation to this, I'll try to keep an eye on the chat or have one of the people on my team, like Ryan or Tonya, at least holler out at me if I miss something. Someone's saying there. Can you, Ryan or Doug, can you guys just talk so I don't have to find the thing if we have more questions?
Yeah, you want another question?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Let me see here. I just want to go back and make sure. We talked about Chris Robinson's question regarding file size. We have another question. Someone saying they experimented a little, and in the export surface menu, you have got the option of splitting the surface into parts. That seemed to work too.
Oh yeah.
But I could not handle the volumes this way.
Oh yeah. Let me go back and do that. That's a good point. So let's turn this off. So I'm turning off the crop. I forgot about that. So in this view, so first thing I'm going to do, so because all these little bits and pieces, that's going to slow things down. Yeah. We can try it with this. So if I click on this button here, split surface into parts, it's going to try to identify each of these individual components. Trying to think of how to describe this. So if the isosurface that was extracted for this represents a single density value throughout your specimen, if the surface, you know, connects and touches all of the different parts, then you're going to get one single triangle mesh for that object. Because each of these shells were compartmentalized in the scanning process, they're not touching. And so if you click this button, we should be able to divide all of those components into individual surfaces that can be extracted. Hopefully this doesn't crash my computer. Let's see what happens here. So if you click split into parts, so it's all of those little bits and pieces that you saw, it's also going to try and separate those out. Might have been a bad idea. The more parts you have, the longer it takes. Yeah?
I was gonna say, while we're waiting for it to load, somebody's asking if have we tried Checkpoint with a Wacom tablet, an interactive pen, or only the mouse?
I believe you can use it with the tablet. I mean, the tablet mimics all of the mouse controls. So, I mean, you should be able to use it for that. I think it can often be cumbersome to use tools like that as opposed to just using a mouse. It's really hard to beat a mouse. That's like why virtual reality and augmented reality hasn't really taken off, because it's really cool to put those things on, and for like 5 minutes it's amazing, but when it comes down to doing work, it's really hard to beat a mouse. So try to keep that in mind. Ultimately, you got to just try it out and see if it works for you, and whatever your workflow is. And if you're trying to do thousands of specimens, you got to find the right tool to make you faster. So now it's split this into multiple components, and you can click through these. These are sorted based upon the size of the component. So up here we have large things, down here we have little tiny things, which I don't even know where that is. It's so small. It's some really small thing. So the larger things are at the top, and then you can, using the arrow keys to move down this list. And so here I can identify each of the individual specimen and then export that specimen. So if I want to just pop that one out, and then it's going to do it in a different file format. In this case, it's one of the surface-based formats that we support. So we'll do PLY in this case. We can load that one. Back here. Oh, we lost it. Oh, no, it's still here. Yeah, sorry, I had the wrong one. Okay, so great, we did not lose it. Here's another one. So export the surface. Back to our specimen. So this is a way to do it too, but you just got to decide if you need the volumetric data, then you want to do this kind of export over here. If you just need the surface data, then this might work a little bit better. You can also do the reflected surface if you click on that, which might be useful for something. Okay, so now we've got a bunch of different shells down here. This is maybe not the best ISO surface, right? Because you have some holes there. So this is where you may want to do the surface. So if you do the surface, volumetric export, you get the raw volumetric data, and then you can change the surface that's extracted on that specimen, on that new specimen. So if I want to, so I'll show you here. So if I move this up in the density, then that gets rid of that noise there. But also you see the surface shrink a little bit. If we go down here, this is telling me that I have a bunch of surfaces extracted over here. The reason that little message pops up, because if you click all of these, if you have multiple surfaces stored in here, the checkpoint file remembers that you have, in this case, 3 surfaces stored. And so when you close down checkpoint and load it up again, it will then go and re-extract all 3 of those surfaces. The reason it does that is when you're placing landmark points onto your specimen, the landmark points are placed with respect to a particular surface, and so you're putting them onto a surface. So it tries to remember which surfaces you have selected and which ones you're using, so that it can match those up to the landmark points that you placed on there. So I'm going to get rid of these 2. I'll try this guy here. Look at this one. This one picks some weird value. So let's pick another value down here. One thing you may want to do is use the same value across your specimen. So in this case, I used 92 for my ISO value. In this case, this is minus 327. So I'm going to close that. I'm going to go up to 92, or as near as I can. And the reason you want to do that is because as you change that ISO value, because it's a a density value with respect to your volumetric data. So remember the topography example of the height, of mountains and that kind of thing. If you're changing that value, you're changing literally the height value within that function. And so as you move the height up and down, that's going to change how those lines kind of circumnavigate that mountain. That makes sense. And so if you go down, it's going to get bigger. If you go up, it's going to get smaller. And that's what's happening. That's what's happening here. So if I move the value up, it shrinks the surface a little bit, and if I move it down, it expands it a little bit. And that's kind of also related to the gradient of the density value for the object that you're investigating, if you think of it that way. So I recommend trying to use a similar value across all of your specimen as much as you can. So okay, so let's do a couple other things here. Let's look at some of the other questions. So one of the other questions was, how do you change the order of landmark points?